My next tip is to check the guitar for tone. How does that guitar actually sound to you? One of the reasons I suggest that you get 3 or 4 guitars that are together within your price range is so you can compare them directly. One of the things that I mentioned was that you're not in the music shop to do a performance. What you want to do is you want to test each guitar against the next one. So what I suggest you do is just play some really basic chords, then swap guitars. Now this particular guitar happens to be tuned to open G right now because of the project I'm working on. But what I suggest you do is literally just play some basic chords. So for example, if I just played this open, so you get a feel for the guitar, each guitar sounds different because of the shape of the sound box, the size of it. This particular guitar is quite big, it's a Dreadnought style body. Guitars which have a slightly smaller body will slightly be more bright in their tone. And they use different timbers on different guitars as well, so the wood will affect how it sounds to some degree. Now what I would suggest you do is play some very basic chords, play them on the guitar, put it down, pick the next one up, play the same chords. Don't get tempted to sit there playing for hours, because really all you're trying to do is just to compare the tone of one guitar to the next one to the next one. So let's say you've gone into the shop, you narrow it down to 4 guitars that you like the look of, pick them up, play some basic chords, go on to the next one, and so on and so on. One guitar that you like the look of and the feel of and sounds the best to you, and that's probably the guitar for you. My next tip is to play all of the notes on all of the strings, but not at the same time, if you know what I mean. What I do mean is to do something like this. Now the reason to do that on all strings, wherever you can, is purely and simply to check that all the strings sound okay. My next tip really is to check the guitar for playability. What I would suggest you do in the first place is try a few different chords, maybe some bar chords or some open chords, to check that it sounds okay and that the neck profile you're happy with in that sense. But also the actual guitar itself, make sure it doesn't have any problems. So what I suggest is to play all of the strings in this kind of thing, all the way up the neck. You could just go simply like, just checking that each one sounds properly. On some guitars what happens is when they get shipped, when they're made, it might be in a hot country, they get packaged and distributed and transported, the guitar will settle to some degree and humidity can affect it and other factors like that. So what can happen is as a guitar is settling, you want to make sure that there's no problems with it after it's actually been made and it's finished and ready for sale. Setup is something that I'll talk about in a minute, which is another reason I suggest that you talk to a shop. But what you're really looking for is just to make sure there's no dead spots, as we call them, on the fretboard, and that all the strings play and sound okay. It's that simple. It's to check the nut itself. This is the nut, the bit where the strings go through onto the tuning pegs. Just make sure that the strings don't bind there. Sometimes this can affect the tuning and playability. So if, for example, you buy an acoustic guitar and you do like to bend the strings a bit, what can happen sometimes if the nut isn't very well finished, the strings can stick in it and this will affect the tuning of the guitar. So simply just have a quick look at it and make sure that it looks okay. Another thing to check while you're looking in this area is that all the tuning pegs turn okay. Sometimes some are a bit tighter than others. This isn't necessarily a problem because I don't know if you can see on the end here, each tuning peg has a little screw in the top, which is the bit that goes in to turn it. Those can normally be tightened or loosened up. What you're looking for is just to make sure that each one works properly, so just give them a very basic turn in the shop, make sure none of them are sticking or there isn't a problem with them. This particular guitar is an electroacoustic. You can see here this is a preamp and the guitar plugs in to an amplifier through the jack socket there. What I would suggest you do is, and this applies obviously if it's an electric guitar, definitely to do this, but with an acoustic as well, just don't assume everything's okay. You want to check that everything works, because if it's been shipped, there's any damage or any humidity has affected it in its transport to the shop or from the manufacturer, you just want to make sure everything is working okay. What I suggest you do is, if you're in the shop, just ask them to set up an amplifier so you can test it. So I want to plug the guitar in, and the same thing as we talked about when testing the guitar itself. Don't go crazy trying to test everything. All you need to do is just literally check if there are controls here, that they work, and that the jack socket is secure, that the guitar actually works. One of the reasons to do this really is just to avoid any problems once you get home. If you go to the store, fall in love with the guitar, try it, it feels perfect to you, you get it home, then you plug it in and it's got a problem, then you've obviously got to go all the way back and sort that out. So it's better to get everything organised when you buy the guitar. So just do some basic checks, check everything works. If you're buying an electric guitar, just check that the selector switch, which selects between the pickups here, is working properly, that the volume and tone controls work, and that the jack socket works properly and it's not loose. On certain guitars, the jack sockets tend to come a little bit loose with these here because it's quite difficult to tighten them up. What I suggest is you just put the jack socket in, just check it's secure, and then literally, if you are a new player, it can be a bit daunting going into a shop and picking up a guitar in front of other people. But what you can do is just literally plug it in, put the amp on a setting that you feel is going to be representative of the sort of tone that you like, the sort of sound of music that you prefer to play. And again, you can ask someone in the shop if you're not sure, if you're a total newbie, as they call them. Get them to set up a sound for you, or even you can get them to play the guitar for you if you want, and you can just watch them, just ask them to check everything's okay. So once again, the pickups are via a selector switch and that the controls work, and just make sure that everything on the guitar does what it should. Another tip, sometimes when you are starting out playing guitar, you don't know really where your style is. It's early days, for example, and you're not sure if you're going to be a blues player, rock player, a finger picker or whatever. So what I suggest you do is try the guitar in the style that you play. So if you're a finger picker, just check, really simple, that your fingers feel comfortable where they're going to be playing. Now this sounds like a really strange thing to mention, but for example, if you play a classical style guitar, the string spacing is slightly wider than on a normal Western strung acoustic. So what you want to do is to make sure that your fingers actually feel comfortable where they're going to be playing, that the guitar body and the shape and everything else feels okay to you. So you could try just picking. If you use a pick, again, just same thing, check that this area here feels comfortable, but you like the feel of it, because if you're going to buy a guitar that's a few £100, dollars, whatever, you've got to make sure that when you pick it up you enjoy playing it, because it's a big investment and it's important just to check really obvious things like that. Don't just go into a shop, see a guitar and go, oh wow, that looks amazing, and then oh yeah, but check everything on the guitar. It's really just to get the best guitar you can afford. There's lots of different brands out there. Some guitars from one name brand might not be particularly your style, so try 3 or 4 brand guitars. The reason I think it's worth going with a decent name guitar is because generally you get quality. Their reputation is such that obviously they want a well finished guitar and they want people to enjoy their products. So if you go for a named brand which has got a bit of support, a bit of quality reassurance, then you're likely to buy a guitar that's going to last a long time. With an acoustic guitar, you generally find that the guitars mature as the timbre ages and the sound gets a little bit better, a bit richer, a bit warmer. So if you're buying a nice guitar, bear that in mind. Sometimes on a new guitar the tone can be a little bit bright. This particular guitar is a Takamine. I think it was made in '94, so it's coming up for 20 years old now, and it's got a really nice big fat body. It's got a very deep sound, very rich warm guitar, so that suits a certain style. For example, if you're playing a particular type of music where you want a particular tone, just bear that in mind when you're choosing the guitar to make sure that it actually fits in that style. Other things to consider: if you intend to play the guitar live, just make sure that if you're going to stand up at a gig, stand up with the guitar. get a strap from the shop, try it. This particular one doesn't have strap buttons on it, so what you would do is normally put them through the back of the strings there, so it's held there, and you can try a strap. Just try the guitar. One guitar sitting down and when you're practicing and playing it might not necessarily be that good when you're standing up. So there's lots of little tips to just check that the guitar's the right one for you. So thank you for watching. I hope that your search for your perfect guitar is going to go well, and if you've got any comments or feedback, please get in touch with me. And also please don't forget to look at other videos in the series we've got. I've got instructional videos on all different types of technique, right from a newbie through to advanced players. If there's something that you'd like to see or songs that you want to know how to play, please get in touch with me. The website details are below, and I look forward to hearing from you. All the best and good luck.